Okay, when you're outside, the first thing you're going to do is choose a place to play. And you're going to find a nice grassy area, about 40 feet long by 20 feet wide. And you're also going to pay attention to where that sun is. What you want to do is stand, if you were playing, in this case we're east and west, both teams have a good clear view. If we set that net up playing north and south, you're going to be having one team look straight into the sun. So depending on the time of year, that will change. So that's a little pro tip. Steve, why don't you grab half of that? We'll go lay this out where we're planning to play. And this will give us enough area, so you go ahead and lay that out right there. That's it.
So what's that thing? Little wraps?
Little wraps.
Anytime.
Anytime, okay. All right, so the next step after you've laid your net out is you're going to assemble the poles, which are going to be your net frame on each side. They're numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, those numbers could wear off. They will eventually. It's very easy to remember. Number 1 is the base. It's a T. Number 4 at the top has the hook where you're going to anchor your ropes to. So those are easy to remember. And then the difference between 2 and 3, 2 is longer than 3. And it goes 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now this is the height of the net, okay? So that's going to be taller than most of the players on the court. So before actually going over here and inserting the sleeve into the post, we're going to go ahead and choose a level that will be closer to the height of the tallest player on the court. And that's the second one down. Do you see how I did that? I pushed that button in, slide it up. That's the tallest. Oh, actually, sorry about that. That's the tallest, way up there at about 6'8". This is still too tall. That's about probably a 6'4" player. And this looks about right. So now it's time to put these poles in. Okay, now you can cut that. Okay, so if you have a partner, you do this together, it's much quicker. It can be done by yourself. We're going to show you how 2 people set up. So just make sure that you're both at the right height, and for the majority of players, that's going to be the 3rd button down. That'll be about a 5'10" to 6 foot player. Okay, so take those over to the sleeves, and in each of these sleeves you're going to see a very tiny slit right up at the top end of the sleeve. That's how you know which end of the net goes up. And this hook, where we're going to attach our guy lines to stake it down, will slide right on through that. So you go ahead and insert your sleeve, find that slit, poke it through, and you do that on both sides. And this, of course, is going to be on the outside because you're going to be pulling those stakes down on each side. Then go ahead and tighten that up. Make sure everything looks good, that your net isn't twisted. Then we'll move on to the next step of staking this down. Okay, so if you haven't seen this segment of a video already, these are called guy lines. Those attached to the stakes. And then these are slide tensioners. And as you see on that slide tensioner, which is already attached to your guy line when you open your box, there are 3 holes. Okay, and there's a knot that attaches that to the bottom. What you want to do is create a small loop between the bottom and the middle hole in the tensioner and slide your stake right on through it. And that is, your stake is going to come off, but every time it does, you'll know exactly which loop it needs to go through. And the reason you do that, I'm going to give you a quick demo now, but we'll give you another one when it's all set up. When it's in that hole, this slide tensioner easily slides to create more tension, and then you can loosen it the same way. So we'll show you that in action, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how that works. If you can master this, it makes setup and takedown a whole lot easier. Okay.
Anytime.
Okay, and as we've already shown you, there's now a loop that you tied in the middle of this guy line, and as you know, there's a loop that we've tied in the middle of the guy line if you followed instructions on your do this first. We have unwound the guy line ropes and the stakes. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take that loop and slip it over the hook, okay? And then, as you see, these stakes, we have the guy line slide tensioner all the way tight against the top of that stake. It's best if you go ahead and give it a nice pull, give it a maybe a foot and a half, so you have a nice big loop of a foot and a half. Go ahead and put that first stake in the ground like that. Go ahead and stand your game up, and you can lean it a little bit more toward the partner so it doesn't fall. Do the same thing again here with this stake. Give it some tension, or rather tighten that up a little bit. You're going to come out at a V and stick that in. Now, depending on your ground, this ground is very soft. You could take a hammer out with you if it's harder ground. You can put your foot on it and push it down a little bit like this. And then you just square this post up so that it's at a 90-degree angle to the ground, a right angle to the ground. And as soon as both sides are standing up, that's when you use this slide tensioner. You reach down, and if you have your loop the way you're supposed to, you pull on the top right here, and you pull up here. Look up here. You pull on the top here to bring that post tight, and then you take up that slack by sliding the tensioner up. You do that on both sides. Give it a nice pull, slide that tensioner up, and you can just make some minor adjustments to try and get that post straight up and down. So if you come on over here, I'll show you something that you might have happen to you. When you look straight at this post, you're going to see, now I'm a perfectionist, it's angled a little bit to the right. So if that's angled a little bit to the right, there are a couple ways you can fix that. One, you can just kind of come out to the post and give it a couple of kicks. It's going to increase the tension, but it's also going to straighten that out. You can also have your partner over there tighten his side while you loosen your side up. But once you're comfortable with a square net, it's time to move on to the next step. Let's set some boundaries. Okay, so when it's time to set the boundary lines, if you have a partner again, each of you take half of these stakes that are going to stake those boundary lines down, and each of you should have one long boundary marker, which is for the sides. You should each have one of the black ones, which is what will be your no spike zone markers, and then you should each have one of the shorter yellow ones, which will be your end lines. Okay, so come on over here to Steve's and we'll show you how we find the middle. There are a number of grommet holes, as they call them, on each of these lines. This is what a grommet hole looks like. Now that's the very end. What you want to do is you want to find the middle. On this long yellow marker, you'll see one on the end and one just a little bit in. This is where you would stake it for singles play, and we'll get into that later. And for doubles play, it's the full length. But there's also a middle section. So if you continue, the next grommet hole that you'll run into, that's going to be your no spike zone. The next one is the middle, and then at another 5 feet, another no spike zone. So that's how you know you found the middle. If you have one here and 2 more each at 5 feet from the middle. So Steve, why don't you go ahead and show staking that middle one down. Come on in tight here. This will line you up to get a nice rectangular boundary. You just stake that right into the ground, and from here you're going to eyeball what is square, drag those back, and I'm going to do the same over here. And when we're done setting these, we're going to show you how to place the remaining lines very easily. We'll be right back to you.
Put no spike zone in. Once they get these lines down.
You know what's funny? All the turns out of it. So,
man, this is really.
Okay, Rich, ready? Okay, so as you set your side boundaries, one thing that you want to make sure of, if you're a perfectionist like I am, if you're going to do something, you might as well do it right. You just make sure there are no twists in this line. And then you just eyeball that and go ahead and put a stake in. You're going to share this grommet hole with the end boundary. So we're going to show you how that works now. But don't worry if you're eyeballing it and it's not exactly square. That'll work itself out in this next step. Okay. We should note, before we place these back boundaries, they have a grommet hole on each end, 2 on this end, and just 1 on this end. Now why would that be? If you notice this other sleeve, that's your singles sleeve. So what you want to do when you're setting your end boundaries is the side of the boundary line that has that extra grommet hole, that's going to line up with your singles court. So as you make your adjustments, it's very easy to adjust one line in as you're moving the post in, and we'll show you that later. Okay, so you just lay it down, you think you're square, come on in tight here and we'll show you how these share a hole. This was already staked down where I eyeballed it. You just set this one right over the top and put that stake back in. There's your singles grommet hole. Come on back, making sure that you don't have any twists in the line. And here you go. So again, if you come in close, you're going to see I am just a little bit long, which means I probably eyeballed one side or the other a little bit wrong. So you just kind of adjust it like this. So nice and tight on both sides. Go eyeball it again. And it should be fairly close to square. And once you're satisfied with that rectangle, it's time to do the no spike zone lines. And as seen before, on the no spike zone line, you're going to see that each end has a grommet hole, but there is one end that has 2 grommet holes. And if you're following along with me, which end should this singles grommet hole be on? You're right, the side with the singles net sleeve. So go ahead and take another stake. You find your no spike zone grommet hole on your side boundaries. It's going to just share that hole. Drag that through your fingers to take out any twists. Over to the other no spike zone grommet hole. Match those up. And stake it down. And now we're just about ready to play. There's one more step that is purely optional, but we like to use it because it looks nice. Your kit ships with 8 cones. What we do with these cones is we go ahead and we set these out over each stake. One, because we think it looks nice, but also you'll have people playing barefoot. It just kind of helps them to avoid stepping on a metal stake. And you throw those on each corner. You're set up and ready to play. Beautiful, right? Now let's show breaking it down. Okay, you ready? All right, when we set these guy lines and we stake them in, remember we included some extra space here. That's going to be useful as we move this into the single sleeve. You just slide that tensioner down a little. You don't want your net to fall, but you want it to be nice and loose. Slide that tensioner down. Okay. And then you can go ahead and slip it right off the top, because you're going to take the net off of the post here, and you're just going to reinsert it in the single sleeve. If you keep a little bit of tension on the other side, it won't tip over, but don't worry if it tips over. We'll be resetting these anyway. And there is a slit that it comes right through, just like before. Okay, we're going to show you what we do with this in just a minute. You go ahead and grab your line, and if you didn't leave yourself enough room, come on over here, partner. We hold that up. I didn't leave myself enough room to get all the way over to it, so I just come back and I create more slack by sliding those down. I think you're getting the hint that it's important to learn how to use these guy lines with slide tensioners. And hook it right on. Now you can go ahead and get it square again. And with this extra flap that was the doubles sleeve, you just fold that right in, and there are some Velcro strips to attach it to. And you can just go ahead and tighten your net up, make sure it's square, and then we're going to move the boundary markers in for singles play, which again is quite simple. As we showed you before, there's a singles grommet here because the cord is a little bit shorter for singles and a little narrower. So you just simply pick up the stake here, here, and on the other two ends. And it's always best to start in the middle. So you go back to that middle grommet hole, and right to the outside of the frame, stake that down. I'm just going to go ahead and come all the way back, and we're going to slide this up, stake that down, and then you do the same over here, and stake this down. Where's my stake? Damn it. Sorry, you're gonna have to stake that down. And then over on the other side, you're still at the longer width or longer length. So you just move that one forward. And there's your singles line. Another reason we like to have these cones is we take that excess and we roll it up and put it right under the cone. Take the excess here, hide that under the cone. And we are ready for singles play. What do you say, Steve? Should we hit a few balls?
Yes. It's a long.
Okay. Now this height is perfect for Steve and I, but if the kids want to come out and play, let's just say that they're somewhere in this neighborhood of height. It's a lot more fun to play at the height level of the tallest player on the court. So if you have kids, just going to give you a little tip. First thing is just loosen this a hair, just so you have some room for it. Slide that down, just, I mean, we're talking an inch or two. Under the sleeve, you just have to lift that sleeve up a little bit. Find the button, push it, and take it down to the next click. See how that's been lowered? Go back over and slide these back up. I can't emphasize enough how helpful it is to practice with these slide tensioners. Learn how they work. Tighten that up, and now
Stop.
So when it comes time to lower this for the kids, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to learn how to use these slide tensioners. Just give yourself a little bit of slack so you don't put too much pressure on the net. And then if you raise the net just up that sleeve to expose the button, this is how you take it down a notch or up a notch. We're going to go ahead and take it down. You push it in and you just kind of keep that straight, and you'll see it hit that next button. Don't worry if you can't find that hole, you just move it around a little, you'll find it. Slide that back down, okay? And then with your slide tensioners, bring that tension back up to where it ought to be. Square off your poles again, and it's about ready for the kids to play. Oh good, we're killing it. It's only 12:30. So now one more adjustment we're going to show. Obviously with this game we have a lot of pickleball players that enjoy playing sandy pickle at the park, on the beach, but they still play pickleball, and that's not going to change. So if you want to get a little bit of volley practice, we went ahead and made sure that this was adjustable to a standard pickleball height so that partners can practice their volleys. Very simple, again, with the slide tensioners. Have I mentioned how important these are? Slide it down just a bit to give yourself a little bit of slack. And on this step, to bring it to pickleball height, you're going to pop off the middle pull. Okay, we're going to just go ahead and take that right out. And we're going to use that slot at the bottom to insert the net and adjust that tension back up again. And you're going to need to take quite a bit of tension out of it this time because we're all the way down at the bottom. I think I took a little bit too much, Steve. Let me give you back some. My pole is tilted toward me. Get that nice and square. Tighten it up. And let's get some volley practice in. So as you see now, we are right at about the 3-foot level. Very close to regulation. So if you want to get a little bit of volley practice, keep in mind the no spike zone is set at 5 feet, where your kitchen and pickleball is at 7 feet. So if you want to move that back, you can, or just eyeball it. stand behind what would be the kitchen line with your partner, and just practice that hand-eye coordination. Okay, here we go. And then stand across from your partner and practice that hand-eye coordination with some volleys. Oh! Oh! We better get one good one. And now it's time to practice some volleys. You can do this on the beach, on the grass. You can even do this inside if you have a living room. Now it's time to practice some volleys. Get 7 feet from the net, each of you, and practice that hand-eye shit. Get 7 feet from each other. Give yourself a couple feet here so it's more like a pickleball court, and practice. Oh!
Oh, good shot.
Woo! Screws it up, gets Rochambeau'd right in the balls. You get about 7 feet from the net and practice those volleys. Hand-eye coordination. Ah!
Oh, that was pretty good.
Good. Okay, now we're going to tear it down. Okay, let's tighten that up. Okay, now you're done. It's time to take it all down. It doesn't really matter which order you take it down in, but we're going to go ahead and first show you how to take the net down for storage. So, what's the first thing that we do? Slide tensioners. Give them just a little bit of slack. Okay, a little bit of slack. Now you can give it all the slack and drop it to the bottom, but what I want to show you is we're going to go ahead and detach 1 and 2 from 3 and 4, okay? And I'm going to show you how 3 and 4 work in a separate video. So this is what you're left with. 3 and 4, if you remember, are telescoping, okay? They're right inside of each other. This is the height that we usually play at, which is the second notch up. So rather than continue to take the net on and off the post, we actually like to store it just like this. So you get across from each other, again, 3 and 4, whoops. So you get across from each other, 3 and 4, stay on, and you just come together, and you come together again, and again, and then you just roll that up. And that fits perfectly inside the bag. Now if a taller team was playing and those posts are extended a little bit more, they won't fit in the bag. So you just need to make sure it's at a shorter level. Just like that. And then you can take the other posts apart. Make sure you don't leave your stakes. Now I'm going to give you a little tip on how to take these stakes and put them away. So, it's in there deep. It's not easy to pull it out sometimes. Use that rope to pull it just a little bit in the direction that it has been pounded in. And get that stake out. Now to put it away, it's so much easier if you use that slide tensioner to bring all of the slack out of the rope and get a nice tight loop right here. We're going to do that with the other stake. Again, slide it nice and tight. Don't worry if it falls off the stake because you know which hole it goes in. Get that nice and tight. And then holding the stakes together, you can just go ahead and wind it up. Now it doesn't always unwind perfectly, but the tangles aren't too bad. If anyone has an easier way of putting this away, send it to us, we'll share it. There you go. Okay, last. Oh, the cones. Shoot. We were going to show only using the cones. I'm going to give the pro tip about storing the stakes. Okay, ready? Okay, now let's put away the boundary lines. I'm going to show you two things that make it a lot easier for us. First, go around and just pull all of these stakes. They're very easy to lose. If you do lose one, don't worry too much. A golf tee actually fits nicely right through there, or these are pretty easy to come by. But why lose them if you don't have to? So after you have collected each of your stakes, these come in a plastic bag. When you open your kit, that's not going to hold up. So what we like to do is, maybe a sunglasses case, a soft case. You can just find any little pouch and use that to keep them all together nice and neat in the bag. Okay, so if you've been putting your game away the way that we showed you, leaving the top two poles inside the net, it's going to be super simple to set it up the next time. 1 and 2. Okay, those are going to go together. And as before, you take your net and you find the place that you're going to play. If we were to play north and south today, I'm looking straight into the sun, so we don't want that. So we're going to set this net up north and south, playing east and west. So let's go ahead and unwind this, Steve. Go ahead and take your end. And you can snap 1 and 2 right into the existing 3 and 4. And we're all ready for the stakes at this point. Here you go, Steve. There are your stakes. And I will grab mine. Unwind those. You may have just a little bit of a tangle. And find your center loop. Hook that right over the top. Come on over to me, Rich. We'll show you how this is going on this side. Steve's got just a little tangle. No problem. That's going to happen. Just untangling these two stakes. There we go. And remember, if you've seen some of our other videos, this is tight along the stake. Give that some, give that some space. Go ahead and put it in at a little bit of an angle. Slide that slide tensioner up. Go ahead and put that in at a little angle. Don't worry about that. Steve's going to catch up on the other side. And this side is ready to go. You lean it against the tension. I can come on over here and help Steve. Tilt this up. And Steve really didn't measure very good, so we're not going to use this piece of the video. Get those, pull those out. Pull those stakes out. You're way too far. You're way too far back. Because if you want to take it down, get more tension. So after you have one side up, the other side is super easy. You can tilt that up. Steve has already put those stakes in at about the right point. Slide that over the hook. Estimate about what's going to be square here. And get your tension. Put back on these. Sliding those tensioners. How we're looking. Now always pay attention to, you see this is a little bit twisted. Just go ahead and straighten that out. Get a good look at it, because you're going to use the T at the bottom to be the guide for your boundary lines. So once you feel comfortable that you're square, we're going to show you this time how to set up a quick court where you don't need exact boundaries. You're just going to estimate the boundaries using the cones. But we will use one of the long side boundary markers to help us set those cones where they need to be. So you grab a, go ahead and unwind that for us. Grab a side boundary. Just one stake is all you're going to need this time. And you're going to need the cones. I'll go ahead and take half of the cones while you get that ready. So Steve's going to find the middle, and he does that by finding the 3 grommet holes closest to the center. One in the middle, one on each side at 5 feet. He's going to stake that right into the middle, next to the post. And then at that point, don't worry about twists so much now, because we're not going to leave this out. You just grab a cone, pull this out, and if you feel like those twists are shortening your line, then feel free to untwist it. But as you see, I untwisted it and it didn't change where I was. Give it a nice tug, eyeball it. Looks like we're about right, so we're going to drop a cone here on that grommet hole. Drop a cone right here on that grommet hole. Okay, and then we're going to take those other 2 cones and the boundary marker. And I'll take Steve's job this time. Go ahead and grab that, Steve. It's around the post. Grab it right there. And stake that into the middle. Take a walk back. And we're straight across from each other. Eyeballing it, that looks pretty good. Drop a cone here. And drop a cone here. And then you can just go ahead and wind this back up. So while Steve takes care of winding that back up for the bag, I'm going to show you what we do if we're in the sand. We know approximately what is out, but in the sand, maybe in another video I'll show you this when I'm on the beach. You just draw a line between all the cones with your foot. You could put some chalk out if you want to do this on your lawn. Do the same thing in the no spike zone along each boundary. And you'll see on the beach, you'll know what's in and out, and just keep redrawing those lines as you mess them up. So that's for a quick setup without all the boundary markers. Now let's go play. In case you haven't read the rules of Sandy Pickle, with pickleball you're required to serve from down here. Sandy Pickle, you can serve overhand, underhand, sidearm, backhand if you wanted to, and feel free to come up with your own serves. One of my personal favorites, patent pending, It's what I call the moon ball. With your partner ready to return a serve, and I've been doing overhand serves, I surprise him with a moon ball. That was maybe a little bit long, but it gets to be extra fun if there's a little bit of wind. It's a high risk, high reward serve. There you go, that's in. Now, here's an example. Here's an example of an overhand serve. Borrowing from tennis with a little bit of a top spin. Let's try that again. An example of an overhead serve. This overhead serve is something I've been perfecting. I think mine was long. So on this tip, when you put your lines away, it can be tedious to try and roll it all up nice and neat. You actually don't really need to. So what I like to do is I take a hair tie, steal it from my daughters, and go ahead and just wind. You don't even have to worry about it getting twisted. And you're gonna have 4 of these. 2 boundaries on the sides, 2 on the back, and then you're gonna have the 2 black ones also for the no spikes on, so actually a total of 6. You just get that nice bundle and take that hair tie and just wrap it around, and that'll stay tight in the bag. Just a little pro tip for you.
Yeah.
And then these little ground stakes that you use to attach the boundary markers, you'll lose those for sure. So a couple of things. One, to help you not lose them, I usually just grab a sunglasses case, and I use that as a place to store. I usually just grab a sunglasses case, and I use that as a place to store these until the next time that I use it. And then it sits in the bag nicely. They stay all together. That's all. Okay, so this is what poles 3 and 4 look like when they're inside of each other, right? You have the telescoping. This height right here, the second notch up, is where it typically is played for 5'10" to 6 foot people, which is most of the world actually. So this is what it looks like inside the sleeve. It's much easier to pack it up with this inside the sleeve, and you'll find that most of the time you probably play at the same level, whether it's that or if it's slightly lower for a crowd that's not as tall. But packing it up this way reduces the tension on the net, and it fits perfectly in the bag at this level. Now if you're at some of those higher levels, you're going to need to drop that down before putting it away. But I just wanted to show you what that looks like inside there, because most likely after you have set it up once, you're going to put it away the way we showed you before, and you're only going to be dealing with poles 1 and 2, and these are already assembled.